Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling uneasy, second-guessing yourself, without being able to explain why? The words may have seemed harmless, but there was something in their tone that made you feel like you were at fault, like you needed to apologize, like you had to do more just to be accepted. That's not your imagination. That's the secret weapon of narcissists. In the world of narcissistic abuse, the most skilled manipulators don't just control you with what they say or do, they control your deepest emotions through their tone of voice. Sound tone, something we often overlook, is actually the most dangerous tool. It bypasses rational thinking, cuts straight into your emotional nervous system, making you feel safe when you should be on guard, and making you feel guilty when you've done nothing wrong. And here's the scary part. Your brain is wired to believe tone before words. Since ancient times, humans survived by detecting tone, knowing who was friend, who was foe, and who was a threat just by the way they sounded. That survival instinct is still active today, and narcissists know exactly how to exploit it to gain control over your mind. They know when to sound soft and sweet to lower your defenses. They know when to raise their voice just enough to make you afraid. They know when to go cold and indifferent to make you chase after their attention. In this video, I'm taking you deep into the hidden language of the narcissist, where tone becomes the noose that wraps around your mind. You'll learn to recognize the 5 most manipulative tones they use, ranging from fake sweetness and self-pity to passive-aggressive coldness and explosive anger. More importantly, I'll show you how to break free from this emotional loop so they can no longer control you. Remember this, the moment you recognize how they use tone to manipulate you is the moment you start taking back your power, and that is where your journey truly begins. If you're looking for real freedom from all forms of manipulation, subscribe to this channel now so you won't miss the strategies that will help you build strong boundaries and reclaim your life. Watch this video all the way to the end, because I'll reveal one simple but incredibly powerful tool that can stop you from ever falling into a narcissist's emotional trap again. Let's get started. There's one thing most people overlook, yet it's the key that allows narcissists to manipulate you most easily. It's not their words, it's not even their actions, it's their tone. You see, we tend to believe that what someone says is what shapes how we feel and react. But the truth is, your brain is already being manipulated before it even has time to process the words. Why? Because tone, the way they speak, reaches your emotions faster than your logic. That's how our nervous system has been wired for thousands of years. Go back to prehistoric times, before language even existed. Back then, sound and tone were the only tools humans had to distinguish safety from danger. A growl could signal a predator nearby. A soothing voice meant safety. And to this day, that instinct remains intact. So even when you hear something that sounds harmless, your brain reacts to the tone first. If the tone is gentle and calm, you feel safe. If it's sharp or harsh, your body instantly tenses up, preparing to defend itself. Now, here's the crucial part. Narcissists know this, and they know exactly how to exploit it. They don't need profound words. They don't need convincing logic. All they need is to adjust their tone, and that alone is enough to control your emotions. Even more dangerously, they use tone to confuse your emotional nervous system, creating a disconnect between what you feel and what you know. You've probably experienced this. Your mind says, I didn't do anything wrong, but your heart feels heavy, guilty, anxious, just because of the way someone spoke to you. And that's why tone is the narcissist's most dangerous weapon. They know when to sweet-talk you with honeyed words to make you drop your guard. They know when to pour out sadness in their voice to make you feel like you're the reason they're hurting. And they definitely know when to unleash fury in their tone to intimidate you into submission. Worse still, they know exactly when to go silent, to act cold, to withdraw emotionally, so you scramble to win back their attention. But no matter which tone they choose, the goal is always the same: to control your emotions. And this explains why so many victims of narcissistic abuse experience deep inner conflict. On one hand, their logic tells them something is wrong. this isn't fair, this feels manipulative. But emotionally, they're caught in the grip because of the narcissist tone. They feel guilty when spoken to in a sorrowful voice. They feel scared when they hear anger, even when no threats are made. They feel they need to do more, try harder, just because of a cold, indifferent tone. And here's what I want you to remember clearly. A narcissist's tone doesn't reflect the truth. It reflects their intention. They may sound sweet, but not because they love you. They want to keep you under control. They may sound hurt, but not because they're truly in pain. They want you to feel guilty. They may sound angry, but not because you did something wrong. They are afraid of losing control. Tone is the deepest emotional manipulation tool, and if you don't learn to recognize it, you'll keep being led, trapped in the emotional maze they've built. But trust me, when you learn to listen with awareness, when you realize that tone is just a tool for control, that's the moment you begin to take your power back. And that's why I want you to stay with me in this video. In the next part, I'll show you the first manipulative tone to watch out for, the one that sounds soothing, but is actually the most sophisticated emotional trap narcissists use to bind your mind. Manipulative tone. 1. Excessive sweetness. When people think of narcissistic red flags, they often look for the obvious: explosive anger, controlling behavior, or cold indifference. But one of the most dangerous weapons in a narcissist's arsenal hides behind a tone that sounds anything but harmful. An overly sweet, affectionate voice, a tone that feels safe, caring, and deeply validating, yet is actually a deadly emotional trap. It's hard to question someone when they're speaking to you in a soft, tender, "I care about you" voice. It's the kind of tone designed to make you feel special, cherished, and more important than anyone else. That's why love bombing, the first stage in the narcissistic manipulation cycle, hits so powerfully. But here's the truth. What makes love bombing so effective isn't just the compliments or the showering of affection. It's the tone of voice. That sweet tone is what slips past your rational defenses and heads straight to the deepest parts of you. The part that longs to be loved, to be seen, to belong. And once that feeling is triggered, you begin to trust. You let your guard down. You open up to the affection without a second thought, because that tone is whispering to your subconscious, "You're safe. I care about you. I won't hurt you." But if you take a step back, you'll start to ask yourself, well, does someone need to be this sweet right away? Is it genuine affection, or a strategy to get me hooked on their validation? For many, the answer is a wake-up call. Narcissists don't offer love, they make an investment, and their overly sweet tone is the first installment in their emotional manipulation strategy. They know that every time they speak to you in that tone, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good hormone tied to pleasure and emotional connection. It's a reward system, and soon you become addicted to the feeling. You crave it. You start chasing that sweetness because it makes you feel safe, valued, and wanted. But inevitably, things change. That sweet tone becomes less frequent. They begin to pull away, grow distant, and without even realizing it, you start working harder, trying to earn that tone back, treating it like a reward you have to be worthy of. And right there in that moment, they've taken control. That sweet voice is no longer something you naturally receive. It becomes a tool to control your emotional state, compelling you to follow the rhythm they set. When you start trying to be good enough to hear it again, you've already handed over your emotional power, and the game of manipulation begins to run smoothly. From the outside, someone might wonder, why is it so easy to fall for that? But inside the emotional whirlwind, you can't tell what's real and what's not, because that sweet tone has deeply embedded itself into your nervous system. That's why awareness starts with recognizing what lies beneath the sweetness, because that excessive sugarcoating doesn't reflect sincerity, it reflects intent. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Why do I need these compliments to feel enough? Is this sweetness genuine encouragement or a subtle emotional leash? What are they really trying to get from me through this tone? And when those questions arise, The 3-second pause technique becomes your lifeline. Just stop, take a deep breath, count to 3. Give your mind the space to catch up so your logic can step in before your emotions spiral. And remember, the best response to an overly sweet tone is calm detachment. A simple phrase like, "Oh, think about it." That's all it takes. In that moment, you take back your emotional control. You step outside the loop they want to pull you into. Now that you've learned to recognize the sugar trap, the first manipulative tone, let's move on to the next one, the celebrity tone. A tone crafted to make you feel like you've been granted a rare privilege, when in fact it's part of a subtle social ranking game narcissists use to keep themselves on top. The celebrity tone. Once you've learned to recognize the honey trap, another manipulative tone begins to emerge, the celebrity tone. But it's not the glamorous kind of fame you might picture. It's a confident, subtly superior attitude, like they're granting you a privilege simply by letting you be near them. If the sweet tone makes you feel loved, the celebrity tone makes you feel like you have to earn your place. And that's exactly how narcissists create an invisible hierarchy, where they always remain on top and you're constantly trying to climb up. Picture this. They speak to you in a casual, friendly tone like the two of you are longtime friends. They smile, compliment you now and then, and make you feel like you're chosen, invited into their special inner circle. But if you pay closer attention, you'll sense a clear, unspoken ranking beneath the surface. They are the center, you're lucky to be close. And here's the danger. This tone doesn't force or command, it suggests. It subtly implies that you should be grateful, that you should try harder to keep your privileged position. Narcissists understand how strong the human drive for social survival is. We're wired to recognize hierarchy, to seek approval, to maintain our place in the group. Being accepted by the tribe has been a matter of survival since the beginning of humanity, and the celebrity tone exploits that instinct to the fullest. When they speak to you in a breezy, slightly condescending tone, it activates your need to belong, to maintain your place beside them. You start to feel like if you don't do enough, if you don't keep trying, you'll be pushed out of the circle. And that's when the game begins. You start to work harder to please them, to keep their attention, to stay in the inner circle they've crafted. But here's the truth. That circle was never real. It's an illusion their tone created. A sense that you're close to the center, when in reality, you're kept at the edges, always striving, never arriving. And the more effort you put in, the more control they gain. What makes this tone especially dangerous is that it doesn't sound threatening. On the contrary, it sounds friendly, even flattering. But beneath the surface, it plants feelings of inadequacy, of needing to prove your worth. So how do you identify and break this social ranking trap? Start by tuning in to how you feel after talking to them. Ask yourself, do I feel pressure to impress them? Do I feel like I have to work harder just to stay close? Do I feel like I'm not enough? These questions will help you recognize the subtle social signals their tone is planting in your mind. And once again, the 3-second pause technique becomes your emotional shield. When you sense that casually superior tone creeping in, stop, take a breath. Count to 3. That pause gives you space to step outside the hierarchy they've set and come back to yourself. A powerful way to respond to this tone is with calm, confident curiosity. Try saying, "Oh, that's interesting. What makes you say that?" Just one gentle question like this can break their unspoken dominance and force them to step back. Because in this psychological game, you don't need to win by their rules, you just need to refuse to play. And now that you've learned to spot the social status trap, the second manipulative tone, stay with me as we explore the next one, the Martyr Tone, where pain and guilt are used like emotional shackles, making you feel responsible for their suffering. The Martyr Tone, after being swept up by excessive sweetness, then tested by the subtle hierarchy of the celebrity tone, you might think you've seen all the tricks a narcissist has to offer. But just when you start to regain your balance, a new tone enters. Softer, more refined, yet capable of pulling you even deeper into the emotional spiral. It's the Martyr Tone, a heavy, sorrowful sound, as if their pain is somehow your fault. What makes this tone dangerous isn't volume or intensity. It's the guilt it triggers in you. When they speak, their voice is tinged with sadness and quiet disappointment, as if you've hurt them deeply, even though in truth you may have done absolutely nothing wrong. This is where the narcissistic mindset is fully exposed. Narcissists use the martyr tone to bind you emotionally through guilt. They lower their voice, sigh, and leave long weighted silences. They don't have to tell you you're wrong, they make you feel like you are. And you start asking yourself, am I being too cold? Did I not care enough? Should I do something to make it up to them? But here's the truth you need to see clearly. These aren't your real emotions. They're ones they've planted inside you. The martyr tone takes advantage of our natural human empathy. We're wired to respond to the pain of others, especially those close to us. When someone appears to be hurting because of us, we instinctively want to fix it, to soothe it, and narcissists know this. They exploit that reflex mercilessly. They create the illusion of being a helpless victim, someone constantly hurt by your actions, so you begin to take responsibility for their emotional state. But the truth is, they don't want healing, they want control. The more guilty you feel, the easier you are to manipulate. Before long, you start changing your behavior, walking on eggshells, trying to avoid disappointing them, trying not to cause them pain. You begin to lose your boundaries. You trade your own needs for their emotional comfort. But the more you give, the more they demand, because guilt is their tightest leash. Stop and ask yourself, am I feeling more guilty than I normally would? Is this guilt actually justified? Am I taking responsibility for emotions that don't really belong to me? That's when you need to listen, not to their tone, but to your own inner voice. And once again, the 3-second pause technique is your shield. When you notice their voice getting heavy and sorrowful, when it starts making you feel uneasy, take a breath, count to 3. Let your mind return to center and ask, is this really mine to carry, or something they've projected onto me? A powerful way to respond to the martyr tone is to validate their feelings without taking on the blame. Say something simple like, I'm sorry you feel that way. This acknowledges their emotion but keeps you out of the guilt game. You offer compassion but maintain your own emotional boundaries, and once you've stood strong in the face of false guilt, stay with me as we move into the next manipulative tone, the angry tone, where aggression and intimidation become weapons of control designed to make you shrink, submit, and follow without question. The angry tone. If the previous tones, sweet, superior, sorrowful, were invisible ropes tightening around your emotions, the angry tone is a direct blow. No subtlety, no disguise. It strikes straight at your deepest fear. The fear of being hurt, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being enough. That's what makes the angry tone one of the narcissist's most powerful manipulation tools. Imagine this. You're in the middle of a conversation, things seem calm, then suddenly their voice shifts. It grows louder, sharper, laced with hostility and aggression. They might not be yelling, but their tone alone is enough to knock you off balance. In that moment, fear takes over. Logic shuts down. You stop arguing. You stop defending your point of view, just to avoid escalating the conflict. But here's what you need to understand. That anger is not a raw emotion. It's a tactic. Narcissists know that most people will do almost anything to avoid conflict. We're wired to diffuse tension, to keep the peace, to avoid upsetting someone. And narcissists exploit that instinct to the fullest. They know that by raising their voice, by making you feel unstable, you'll automatically retreat, give in, and abandon your own needs. And over time, you become conditioned. Every time their voice turns angry, you step back. You silence yourself. You shrink, all in the name of keeping the peace. But here's the truth. That peace was never real, because it's built on fear and self-erasure. And worse yet, this anger isn't a show of strength. It's a sign of fear. The narcissist fears losing control, that they use anger as a shield to protect the fragile ego hidden beneath. Think back to those moments. when you couldn't speak your truth for fear of triggering a rage, when you chose silence and compromise just to keep things smooth. When you felt trapped, unable to breathe because your voice was gone, that's when the angry tone had done its job. It made you afraid. It made you small. So how do you break the cycle? First, recognize the tone as soon as it starts to rise. When their voice grows louder, faster, more forceful, pause. Don't let the automatic fear response take over. Instead, breathe. That pause is enough to interrupt the emotional hijack and bring your clarity back online. Then, once you're centered, set your boundary. No need to fight, no need to explain, just speak with calm firmness. I'm not comfortable with this conversation. If needed, step away. There is no shame in walking away from emotional assault. And most importantly, don't let fear run your life. You are not obligated to endure someone else's rage. You are not responsible for calming them down. Their anger is their story. Your boundary is your strength. When you stand firm in the face of the angry tone, you reclaim your voice. And now that you've made it through the most forceful manipulation tactics, stay with me as we enter the final tone, the monotone voice, where emotional detachment and icy indifference become the narcissist's ultimate withdrawal strategy, making you feel invisible, unworthy, and desperate to earn back their attention and approval. The monotone voice, as after the dramatic outbursts of anger, after the sweet words and the superiority, there's another tone, one that seems harmless on the surface, but silently erodes your emotional well-being. It's the monotone voice, cold, flat, detached, as if you no longer matter to them at all. No need to raise their voice, no need to show strong emotion, just a dull, lifeless tone. And suddenly, you feel pushed aside, unimportant, and the most painful part, you don't even know why. You were once familiar with the stages where their voice was warm, caring, even angry, but now you're faced with a wall of indifference. Their words are short, dry, disconnected, and that emptiness they project creates an emptiness within you, one that makes you start questioning, did I do something wrong? Should I try harder to get their attention again? Am I still good enough to be worth their care? And just like that, you fall into their trap all over again. The monotone voice isn't meant to communicate, it's meant to emotionally withdraw. As your moon putt, it's a quiet form of punishment, meant to create distance and make you feel like you've lost your value. It often shows up in the devaluation phase, the point when the narcissist decides you're no longer as useful as you once were, but instead of leaving, they keep you around. Why? To watch how far you'll go to earn back their attention, to see how much effort you'll put in to reclaim your place. They don't need to say you're not enough. Their silence and indifference say it all. And this is perhaps the most sophisticated manipulation tactic of all. You start doing more, compromising more, sacrificing more, just to fill the emotional void they've created. You try to win back their eyes, their attention, that once comforting tone that made you feel safe, but they stay detached. And that coldness keeps you stuck in a loop, constantly feeling like you're not enough, like you need to try harder. Narcissists know this. They know that silence and emotional withdrawal can control you even more than anger ever could. So how do you break free from this? Step 1. Recognize the emptiness inside you for what it is. When you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Pause. That feeling didn't come from something you did. It came from their game. And once again, the 3-second pause technique becomes your shield. When their voice turns flat, expressionless, take a breath, count to 3. That pause helps separate you from the need to chase their attention. And most importantly, don't respond the way they expect. You don't need to beg. You don't need to work harder just to make them speak to you normally again. Instead, hold your ground. Speak your truth, as if their indifference doesn't shake you. Remember, their coldness is a strategy, not a reflection of your worth. I suppose, so when they say things like whatever or do what you want, keep talking, keep moving, keep expressing your needs as if they just said something meaningful. Because when you stop letting the monotone voice control your emotions, you reclaim your power. And now that you've identified all 5 emotionally manipulative tones narcissists use, it's time to move into the most important part. Let me show you exactly how to apply the 3-second pause technique to break every voice-based manipulation loop, and how to start rebuilding strong emotional boundaries that protect your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. Now that you've identified the 5 emotionally manipulative tones narcissists use, ranging from excessive sweetness, superiority, self-pity, and rage, to cold indifference, you might be wondering, how do I stop myself from getting swept up in those emotional whirlwinds again? Because even when you understand the patterns and recognize the signs, in the moment when that familiar tone hits, you might still react emotionally before logic has a chance to step in. That's exactly why the 3-second pause technique exists. A simple yet incredibly powerful tool to help you break the manipulation cycle at its root. Picture this: someone speaks to you with syrupy sweetness, sudden anger, or cold detachment. Your brain reacts instantly. Your nervous system's survival instinct kicks in, pushing you to do something, to please, to apologize, to avoid conflict, or to defend yourself. But if you react immediately, you've already fallen into their trap. You're letting emotions take the wheel. And that's why the 3K pause is your golden moment. A brief but critical window where you take back control. How does it work? Step 1. As soon as you notice their tone starting to affect your emotions, pause. Don't respond yet. Take a deep breath. Silently count. 1, 2, 3. In those 3 seconds, your brain is given a chance to interrupt the automatic response and allow your reasoning to return. You temporarily step outside the emotional snare their tone is trying to pull you into. Step 2. While you're counting, ask yourself 3 simple but powerful questions. Does this tone match what they're actually saying and the current situation? What am I feeling right now? Pressure, guilt, anxiety, insecurity? What are they trying to get from me with this tone? These questions help shift your focus from emotion to observation, so you can view their behavior more objectively. Step 3. Once you've identified the intention behind the tone, you get to choose your response. No more reacting on autopilot. You're in charge now. For example, if they use excessive sweetness, instead of being swept away, simply smile and say, "And think about that." This keeps your boundary intact and prevents emotions from making the decision for you. If they speak with that celebrity superiority tone, calmly counter with, "That's interesting." What makes you say that? You disrupt the power dynamic without conflict. If they lean into self-pity, respond with measured empathy. "I'm sorry you feel that way." You acknowledge their feeling, but don't accept misplaced responsibility. If they get angry, stay calm and firm. "I'm not comfortable with this conversation," and if needed, walk away. You have every right to protect yourself. If they use the monotone voice, hold your ground and keep expressing your thoughts as if their indifference doesn't affect you. This breaks their emotional withdrawal strategy. And most importantly, the 3-second pause isn't just a defense tool, it's a declaration that your emotions belong to you and no one else has the right to control them. By pausing, reflecting, and choosing your response, you reclaim authorship over your thoughts, your voice, and your behavior. That's your true power. Refusing to let someone else's tone dictate how you live. In the final section, I'll help you summarize the entire strategy, so you don't just recognize manipulation, but build solid emotional boundaries and, finally, live free from every form of tone-based control. So, we've now walked through the 5 most emotionally manipulative tones narcissists use. From deadly sweetness, subtle social ranking games and guilt-laced sorrow, to controlling anger and ice-cold indifference. Each of these tones has one goal: to take away your emotional control, to make you react the way they want, to make you doubt yourself, to make you abandon your boundary. But now, you know the truth. You understand that their tone doesn't reflect reality. It's a deliberate tool. You've learnt the 3-second pause technique, your emotional shield against every manipulative loop. And here's the most important thing I want you to take away today. Your emotional power always belongs to you. No one, no matter how sweet, how angry, or how cold they sound, can take control of your mind or feelings unless you let them. Every time you pause, breathe, and count to 3, you're sending a powerful message to yourself. I get to choose how I respond. I refuse to let someone else's voice define my worth or control my emotions. Remember, their tone may change, but your inner strength stays the same. You don't need to argue. You don't need to win the confrontation. You win the moment you choose not to play their game. And if you found value in this video, if you feel yourself reclaiming your power, hit that subscribe button. I'm right here with you, or exploring new strategies to help you build strong emotional boundaries. Live free from all forms of manipulation and return to the most powerful, liberated version of yourself. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I'll see you in the next video.